Hi, this is Bob Samuels, founder of TechConnectr. TechConnectr is a marketplace and campaign management platform of best-of-breed account-based marketing lead generation solutions. In association with the Serious Decision Summit, we're happy to bring you wisdom from leading account-based marketing thought leaders. To that end, I'm happy to introduce you to David Jones, a 25-year sales and marketing veteran and president and co-founder of Yesler, an integrated marketing agency built to tackle the challenges of B2B marketing and its inherent complexity. With their team of 250 marketers working around the world, Mr. Jones has helped to build the company into a global marketing institution and perennial award winner, delivering a wide spectrum of marketing and data solutions for some of the world's largest technology brands. David, it's a pleasure to speak with you. How are you today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on, Bob. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. It's a pleasure. I've had the opportunity to speak with some of the really some wonderful people in the industry, and I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts and wisdom on one of my favorite topics, account-based marketing.
All right.
So account-based marketing it's nothing new. It's just a new title. It's named accounts, target accounts. Uh, can you give a little bit of a background about your background and maybe how you've interacted with ABM in the past?
Yeah. So, I come from 20 years of working in the tech sector on the marketing side, and been running a marketing services company now for 15 of those years. Going back to my before doing my own thing. I was working at Microsoft and enterprise marketing, and it was very much about how do you demonstrate business value to enterprise buyers of information technology. And as much as that sounds stale and old, it's still the problem that tech companies are challenged with now. And over the years, different labels and different hype cycles could happen, and this whole thing of ABM really has come to a fever pitch, where I think 2 years ago it was hype and felt like something new, and now I think you see it as it's mainstream, and it's just that's how you do B2B marketing. You're talking to accounts, you're bringing on other companies, you're talking to multiple stakeholders and buying committees within an account. So I think the different labels and trends start to emerge, and a lot of that gets driven by technology that can help automate elements of what we're doing. But at the end of the day, as B2B marketers, we're still tasked with the same goal, is to help drive new revenue opportunities to grow the customer base of the company.
Makes sense. And my understanding is that a lot of the key work for an account-based marketing outreach, if you will, or program, is upfront, the planning and figuring out exactly who you want to target, how are you going to reach them, where are they going to be, what kind of segmenting are you going to do? How have you found the best way to handle like the account selection and prioritization process?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that we've really seen is when ABM started hitting its fever pitch, it was really being associated with technology, and people were looking at, I'm buying this silver bullet and it's a point solution, and there we're going to do ABM because I bought an ABM platform, and they weren't really thinking about like you were just talking about, identifying what their target account list looks like, and are they going to do it in sort of a tiered fashion with one-to-one, very personalized approach at scale for your top tier accounts or target accounts, and then what's the one to few sort of middle tier, and then what's the one to many type of more programmatic approach. So I think helping companies sort through that. And I think the other thing is that a lot of companies think of ABM as a separate thing, but really it's a unified approach to marketing, and it's not just marketing, it's almost a philosophy that sales and marketing have to act as one. Otherwise it's doomed to fail, because you got to talk to the salespeople, and they got to be at the table about what success looks like for them, and what their good accounts look like, and the leads that they can close, so that you're able to engage the right targets for them. So it's this whole idea of a unified approach to marketing. And when we started Yesler, about 6.5 years ago, almost 7 years ago, we built out really this integrated marketing function. We weren't just a MarTech consultancy or a content marketing shop or an ad agency. We looked at all of the elements that were required in this sort of modern marketing era of that where technology was really helping to drive engagement at scale, and how all these pieces have to work together. So that's something that we really try to shine some light on for our customers, because the complexity and execution around this is at such a high level when you factor in multiple stakeholders within a company that's trying to execute ABM, and they're probably working with multiple agencies across creative and MarTech consultancies and maybe some freelancers doing some writing and stuff. And how do you actually bring all that together with multiple elements of a MarTech stack? So that's where we kind of feel like there's this opportunity to work with other agencies and other service firms that might be in there, and try to drive a philosophy of, hey, we all have to be one team for this to be successful. And I think that's something that often gets overlooked.
Yeah, I agree. I think the coordination between sales and marketing is so key, and like I said, it's often overlooked. You would think it makes sense. I mean, everybody going after the best value accounts seems to be not very contentious, but I guess there's politics and egos and silos involved, so it's always a challenge.
Go ahead.
So I was going to switch gears if you had something else.
No, go ahead. Go for it.
Okay. So you've mentioned in the past about, it's not about just new sales. It's about how to leverage ABM. What exactly do you mean by that?
Yeah. So I think there's, coming from, my background and a book that I think has been influential to our entire industry, but, crossing the chasm and thinking about how companies need to see like companies that have been successful with a technology. Again, so Yesler, we focus primarily on the IT sector. So we're a B2B marketing agency that really has a deep understanding of technology purchasing life cycle. And that's not just pre-sale. So you think about what influences future renewals in a SaaS world, what influences adoption and growth and activation of that technology after you buy it. And so I think ABM platforms and the tools that are out there and AI, there's all sorts of new ways to look at after the sale, is a company having success with the technology they purchased. And so, how do you actually ensure that, the customer is successful, so that you're going to drive them towards a path of becoming an advocate for you, which, that can feed back into your ABM efforts around, here's like companies that are having success and have gone on the record to say so. And, that feeds into closing new customers while keeping your existing customers happy. And if you're not focused on that, the other path is that leads towards attrition. And what are you doing to stave that off? So I think there's, as marketers, we need to think about the entire life cycle and think about that customer's experience with your technology or brand throughout their life cycle. And I think that's an important thing. Advocacy becomes a key to ABM success, and it's often overlooked. And there's tools out there like TechValidate, which is now part of SurveyMonkey, that can work to easily start to pull in feedback. And then, of course, you got things like Influitive, which is more community-based. So there's great tools out there to really help on the advocacy front. And I feel it's so important, but not spoken about often enough.
That's a good point. So ABM doesn't end when the customer is signed.
Exactly. You could actually say ABM will always be marketing.
Always be marketing, even after they're a customer.
That's right.
That's very, very good. I like that. So what are some examples of what you've seen? I know you probably can't name specific companies, but what are some of the examples you've seen of ABM done well?
Well, I know, there's been a couple really large scale ones that we've been really proud of what we've done with them. Like one of the larger IT providers in the world is a customer of ours, and we work with them to build a multi-touch ABM program. So it was combining everything from the intent data and processing all that to help identify target accounts, and then putting together not only email and nurture, but direct mail, integrating systems with marketing automation so that we could actually ship devices to their high value prospects that were engaging with sales meetings. And that actually had an impact of adding 224 million to their pipeline, which more importantly was, a return on marketing investment increased 44% from their previous efforts. So showing how to integrate those different functions instead of just a sprinkle of, I'm doing air quotes on ABM, rather than just doing a light sort of, we're going to do this, email targeting these accounts, but bringing in these different functions, tying it in with sales appointments. So sales at the table was key. And, that whole one team mindset, and there's other vendors and agencies involved as well. So, that one team mentality is really what drove the success on that one. There's been there's others that we're working with all the time, and sometimes it's to help them on the tech stack side, sometimes it's on the creative side. Again, working as part of all the pieces that come together. But I think another one where we sort of built the program and again combining everything from their email nurture and their advertising strategy around it, working with the technology they had in place. And, we drove engagement increased by 86% of their target account list in the first 5 months of that. So that program's going well. That's with another sort of global resource optimization company. So that's, again, without being able to name the names, there's a couple large-scale programs that we've driven a lot of success with our customers, their in-house teams, and with their other agencies and consultancies that they use.
Beautiful. And I was going to ask you about outreach and engagement. So you find it important to have a multi-channel outreach, including postal mail, which I think is a great idea because it's less filled in my email box for sure.
Yeah, and I think
that makes a lot of sense.
Whether it's Sendoso or Print for Less, there's vendors out there that make that real easy and integrate in with automation. So then you have the ability to, when something gets delivered, and then that actually can send an alert. So then you can have the SDR follow up with the person. I think there's all these sort of visual and tactile and getting a phone call. There's different experiences that customer or prospect is now getting with your brand, right? And it's just they're being touched in different ways. So not everyone's going to react the same way to a direct mail or to a phone call. But if you're kind of prodding at them from all the different angles, your likelihood of getting through is a lot higher.
Makes sense. So as far as technology goes, you mentioned, which is disappointing, but it's reality that technology is not a silver bullet. It's a tool, and you really need a good plan and a good coordination with sales and all that. But as far as technology goes, what are some of the interesting things that you've seen for instance, in identifying accounts to go after or prioritizing them? Or I think you mentioned predictive or intent signals. What kind of tools are you using to help with the process?
Yeah, well, I think obviously the names that people are going to be most familiar with on that front, and it's someone who's always at the lead of the category is demand-based, and for them data is the differentiator, and their intent signals, and really being focused on really just the B2B side of things, not the consumer intent index. And I'm actually really excited about the announcement they had at the Adobe Summit with Marketo just a few weeks ago, and really trying to connect the dots between when you have anonymous intent signals from an account, but being able to marry that with the contacts that are already in your Marketo system, and start to connect those elements together. It becomes more actionable because you're showing at a macro level that this account has interest or is at a certain stage of a life cycle, and now you have people that you can trigger a follow-up campaign to. So I think there's real interesting things on that front, and excited to see how they continue to build that out from a more full life cycle. What are those intent signals and that you can look for post sale, as we talked about already, to know about activation of a technology and how to look for the right signals on is that going well or not. and then how do you move people towards a life cycle that leads towards them becoming an advocate, as opposed to becoming frustrated. We've seen a lot of people buy technology thinking it's a silver bullet, and then when it's not, they get disappointed and they don't renew. And so you'll see sort of the immaturity of the ABM life cycle a couple of years ago, where there was a lot of just blind investment in the technology without thinking about the people and the process required to make it successful, and then high churn would come as a result of that. But if you take this holistic view, you start to turn, it becomes a technology adoption thing. They really, bring it in, start using it, getting value out of it, and that's what leads customers being advocates, sticking with you for a long time. And if you just do the math, if you keep a customer while you're adding new customers, you're going to grow your customer base faster than if you are churning out your existing customers and having to replace them with new ones all the time.
Makes sense. Thank you. So have you found any technology or any solution providers to help with identifying like white space of the missing contacts that the companies have? What I've been told, especially with big sales, there's not just one person at the prospect that's key to reach out to. There's a whole committee of people, a whole different set of personas that need to be involved, and try to hit them from different angles. There's finance people and the security people and the influencers and the decision makers and all that. So identifying who are all the people that need to be contacted, and then compare that to who the company currently has to kind of figure out who else to reach out to.
Yeah, I think that's where your your data providers come in, and whether you're merging in or importing in third-party contact data to identify certain roles that match with certain personas. Because if you think of the multiple stakeholders or members of a buying committee, they could be, someone's going to be the financial person, right? And then there's going to be the line of business people that are doing it to help solve the operational problem. And what are the hot buttons that each of them are looking for? And it's not just about price and features all the time, right? So what are the problems they're trying to solve? And so it's starting to match that third-party contact data with those intent signals. Then you can place bets on who you're talking to.
Yeah, and then to me, a challenging part, which I don't think technology helps, is content and figuring out what the messaging needs to be for each of these different personas, and how to figuring out what's going to resonate with all these folks.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and that's where where I referenced some of the ABM programs that we've been involved with. Ones that I haven't talked about. There's ones where we're just a creative shop as part of that one team. So there's somebody else, or they have an in-house marketing operations team that's driving all the orchestration, but we're the ones that are working with the brand team to make sure that the message is on point, and designing the creative and putting that together, and plugging that into their internal machines. So there's creative is one of those things that the technology can't necessarily just replace and automate, right? You still need to have creative ways of articulating a message. And when you start thinking about conversational marketing, and how to make things very relevant to people coming to your website, for instance, the amount of work that would go into researching your target accounts to make sure you have the relevant things to message to them and to talk to them about, to help try and solve problems for them, or with them, that takes humans, and then you can scale with things like AI and chatbots and things like that. But just generic, crap on a bot is not going to add value to that customer's experience with your brand. So it does come down to the richness and relevancy of the content and the creative that they're going to interact with.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. So, so you've mentioned some of the key folks in the ABM world, like Demandbase, and some of the new technologies that are here that they weren't here 5 years ago. What, if you can put your crystal ball viewer on, what do you think ABM is going to look like in a year from now, in 5 years from now? I like 5 years, but it's too far away for me to think about. But how do you see things progressing?
Honestly, I think, if you just follow the logical path of ABM went from this shiny new thing that was all hype, and now it's really becoming a mainstream thing. But when you think about going back to, me showing a bit of my age and being in the tech industry and business value days and everything, um, I just I feel like the label is probably going to go away, and it's just how we do B2B marketing because it's business to business. We're talking to accounts, and I feel like just there's plasma screen TVs 5 years ago. Now they just call it a TV. Actually, there isn't even plasma screens anymore. Just flat panel TVs are just seen as TVs now, right? It's no longer a flat panel label on it. So I think you need to you look at how things will just evolve, and this is just as it becomes mainstream, it just becomes marketing.
Yes, and like you said, nothing's going to replace having to talk to the customer.
Yeah, and the other interesting thing too, we're in the middle of doing some research right now, and I've seen early drafts of the findings, and the report's still in draft that we'll be publishing soon. But it's tied to the IT purchase across the entire life cycle and the decisions that are made even post sale and what influences renewal and things like that. And it's really interesting. Again, I go back to how important it is for people that are purchasing technology to see companies like them having success using this type of solution, right? And so the idea of advocacy and customer success and building out a framework for how customers can be successful and walking them through that is really, again, I think it's just something that marketing, B2B marketers at large are missing out on, largely because they're under pressure to drive, pipeline and revenue, and that's where you can show more ROI. But I think there's still a mindset shift that maybe that's where ABM goes. It shifts to always be marketing, and maybe that's what it becomes, is more holistic and more of a life cycle approach. But I think customer experience is more important in the 5 years down the road. Right now it's more important than ABM. I think it's we just get wrapped around these labels, and they, the hype cycle that goes on with it. We're marketers, so we're attracted to shiny objects. But at the end of the day, you just got to think about the customer and what's working for them, and then not get distracted by any particular label.
That's well said. And I like the fact that you keep going back to customer experience and customer life cycle and referenceable accounts and testimonials and so forth, because those are very strong and powerful, and those are key things for sure to focus on, because that's where the biggest value is, I think.
Yeah, it's in the very DNA of our company. It's my two co-founders and I. It's when we started working together 15 years ago. That's the work we were doing together, and so it's been in our DNA. And we run some of the largest advocacy programs in the world for some of the largest software companies in the world. So it is something that is probably, we don't talk a lot about it, and the industry doesn't talk a lot about it because everyone's focused on things like ABM and demand gen and just automation and sort of all the newer things that have been coming out over the past 10 years. But taking care of your customers and making them successful is never going to get old.
No, I don't think so. And there's no technology that's going. It's all about taking care of them, listening to them, learning, getting them what they need. This is great. So any other words of wisdom that we didn't hit on? Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you at Serious Decisions next month.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. It's always a good event. It's always a good time to see some of the industry peers and get together with all our customers too. So I'm looking forward to that as well. I think I think we've touched on a lot of the main points. Advocacy is a key part to ABM that gets overlooked. I think I've hammered that point home enough.
Yeah.
But I really do feel that's the thing that is not being talked about enough these days.
That's a good one to hammer in, and I'll make sure I'll point that out on the interview summary. This is great. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to seeing you in Austin next month.
All right. Thank you, Bob.
Okay. Take care. Cheers.